Be able to show in order for them to master that SE. So pull out your no-show chart and your teacher exemplar. Your teacher exemplar for that actual assessment. Oh, you ready to share? Oh. All right, we got exemplars now.
Thank you for lunch, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Turn that down.
That's a negative.
All right, yes.
Can I begin?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so 5th grade, I'll begin with 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, of course, making in Princeton.
Mhm.
So the question, it was actually it was a mouthful of a question in itself. Okay, so the question says, the fact that 30% of residuos, like trash, that is on, where do you put the trash? Where they take them?
Recycle bin or the
No.
dumpster?
No, not the dumpster, in the big field, the landfill.
Mhm.
Is it called trash?
Landfill. Yeah,
It's a landfill.
Landfill, so
Mhm.
yeah, so the fact that 30% of the trash within landfills is material that could convert, that you can convert in compost, helps the reader understand that. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff there. The story, well, not the story, the text is about compost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a specific type of compost that is by worm compost. So, they had to, because in the question there is nothing about worms, a lot of people put the recycling question, the recycling thing, that we should recycle more. Okay? So the answers, the actual answer is worm compost could reduce in a significant way the amount of trash within landfills. So the question was about the landfill, and they got confused because the other question is that the landfill, you can get stuff from the landfill for your compost. That's the first one. Then the other one had 30% in it. It was 30% of something else, but had 30%, which is in the question.
Okay.
And then the third one, it says more than half. So a lot of people didn't add that because it was more than half, it's not 30%. So they math won there. So that's good. But they couldn't see that the question was still about landfills and worm compost. And that was the answer. So if you can see, and I brought Darius, who is my
I'ma
guy
just
today,
get
by the
close
way.
to you.
Good job.
So I brought Darius, and you can actually see that he put the actually reduction of significant weight because that's the connection that he made to the text,
Gotcha.
to the question,
And the
okay?
text, okay.
And the text. So then, if you see this component, and you can see half, he eliminated that. 30% had nothing to do with that. And then excellent source, he knew that why would I go to the landfill to get trash? I already had trash at home. So
That's that.
so that is that. Now, you can see another person that got it right, but didn't do that. So that's why. And then somebody who did the work, then she did the compost thing, but then she didn't see that compost was compost. Okay, so there's a different thing. My highest grade, besides Daryl, he got where is it? Oh, sorry, here. So you can see the work. So you see the work that this person did, and she got it initially right, then cancel it, and then put the other one. Okay? But really wrote the whole thing, literally wrote exactly what the answer should be, but didn't make the connection. So those are the type of things. After you do the work, I have to I have to teach you how to make those connections at the end. Because they're doing the work, they're understanding, and then they're like, oh, which is what happened to
So,
Lit.
Dario, what you expected them, so let's think about how the student should have answered. So what you should have saw was what Dario did,
Exactly,
and
yes.
how he pulled out
Exactly right
the
there.
key words, made the connection.
Made the connections
to
to
the
it.
question
Yep.
and the text.
Yep.
Okay. All right. What about you all? How should the student have answered that question?
What should the answer?
Like, what should you have seen? How should they have answered that
Oh.
question?
They should have used the process of elimination,
Okay.
when they went to answer that question. And then, cause the question says, how does Kendra feel about her rain boots?
Mhm.
Well, if they'd gone back into the text, because we're talking about how someone feels,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't exactly say how she was feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but, like for Nate, he did his process of elimination and got rid of those two answers that could not have been the answer. But then when he got his last two, it says she is upset that she won't need them, and then she is glad they will help someone else. Well, what he should have done, once he eliminated that, he should have went back into the text. And if he had went back into the text into paragraph 6, where they were talking about Kendra, and they talk about her having mixed feelings. Kendra remembered her yellow rain boots. She was having mixed feelings about it. So she loved how they brightened a rainy day, but she was glad to put them away after the rain. Yesterday, she placed the boots in a box of things she no longer needed. Then she gave the box to Asia. Her friend could still use those things. And so he got that first step. Let me get rid of the two that don't make sense. But then, since it didn't specifically say how she was feeling, it was left up to him to determine how she was feeling based on what the text says. And he thought, when he read it, that she was upset because she had to give them away.
They almost probably made it personal instead of just,
Yeah.
no, stick to the text. So
Yeah.
he should have showed you that he went back.
That he went back to
To
the
that
text,
paragraph.
that paragraph, because when he went back and he read, I know he went back, but I think it's just because 50% got it.
Mm-hmm.
But some of my kids personalized it and thought about how they would feel, I think, having to give away their rain boots that they
Is that
liked.
character traits?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it makes sense that he will personalize it.
Yeah,
We're
it makes
teach-
sense that he personalized it.
We're teaching the kids to make the connections to
Mhm.
yourself. So he made the connection, but he wasn't able to see beyond his connection.
He didn't see beyond
To
his
the
connection
actual text of what is
to
happening.
where she said her
Yes.
friend could still use those things. So
Yeah.
she gave them to Asia, and her friend could use those things. So when it asked about how she was feeling, he thought about how he would feel having to give his boots away. And then that's what made him choose C. She is upset that she won't need them.
He didn't stick to the text.
He didn't stick
Yeah,
to the
and I think
text.
that's, whenever we teach that connection, that's the tricky thing. Some of our kids don't have any connections,
Mhm.
so they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then some of them made too much of a connection,
Mhm.
and they forget the story. Say, oh, I will be,
I would be
mad.
upset. Yeah, I would be upset that I had to give my boots
So
away.
it is. We have to. It's so
That's a
hard.
fine. It's a
sometimes.
fine line.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the thing that punches the fact of them is they have to be able to pull out
Specific.
text, and it's hard.
And it's
takes
hard.
practice.
Text evidence comes into
It takes
out over connection.
Exactly. It takes a lot of practice. It takes practice on top of practice on top of practice to get them to a point to where sometimes you have to put yourself in the situation, but then there are times when they're wanting to know, what does the text say?
Yeah.
And if he had taken himself out some, he would have gotten that correct.
So my question is, even gotten that correct, but where back in the text is
Where-
the text evidence that supports his answer?
Mhm. She just read it.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you choose that, then where does it say?
It's not gonna say anything
not
about
gonna
her
say-
being upset.
But
No,
the
and
thing is
exactly,
that-
it didn't say anything about her being upset.
Right. It didn't say
It said she had
anything.
mixed feelings.
It says she had mixed feelings, and then it said that she loved how they brightened a rainy day, but she was glad to put them away after the rain. And then yesterday, she placed the boots in a box of things she no longer needed.
And that's it, no longer needed.
She no longer needed it, so she wouldn't be upset about it.
Because she doesn't need
Need
them.
them
Yeah.
anymore.
And so in our steps, she is a he or a she?
My kid, he's a he.
Is a he. So he probably did everything and then forgot that next step of saying, prove that she was
That
upset.
proved that she was upset.
Yes, and then he forgot because he said, I would have been upset because I don't want to give up my boots.
Mhm. And I think that was where the disconnect came in. Because he put himself in there so much that I would be upset that I had to give my boots away, and he left it at that instead of going on in the text and seeing that she wasn't upset about giving her boots away. She no longer needed them.
Yeah.
And then she even
That's a
said that
tricky one,
her
though.
friend could still use them,
Yep.
even though she couldn't. So she wasn't upset about it. That was all him upset.
And I think the question would be,
And
that's
how-
why I always ask, just came from our good friend Arlette. I said, she answered something, because I was working with her, I said, okay, so, it was a wrong answer, but it was like way wrong, and I said, okay, so, where in the text, this is your answer, so where in the text did you get the information? We
To
know that it's
support
not in
that,
the
yeah.
text, because nothing is in the text, but where did you get the information? And she looked at me like, and you can see the pencil erasing it, because she knew that she thought about it, but
Yeah.
she couldn't back it up.
She knew that there was no way for her to back
Exactly.
that up in the text.
So
let
always,
me
I think
get that out.
the question that we need to start asking is, prove it. Not just not just talk about text
You gotta
evidence.
prove it with-
Prove it. Prove that you have the right answer. I
Yeah.
think that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
Good
since
job.
y'all brought up something really good. You brought up
Sorry.
what they didn't know.
No, it's
You brought
good.
up exactly what they didn't do, what they should have done to show, in comparison to your exemplar. So you're clearly seeing some did, some didn't. So what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna cut the time down just a little bit, is go back to your teacher no-show chart. And think about, are there any procedural or conceptual gaps? Remember, procedures, how do you do conceptual deals with the actual SE that could be added, and add them to your no-show chart. So I'm gonna put the timer on, and I'm actually gonna use my phone. But you guys can go ahead and get started. So now you're pretty much stating, okay, what were the gaps in this student's thinking, or how they answered this question?
That's right.
So I cut it down to 10. So don't turn no work into me without annotating. Look, she's thinking about her yellow boots, so he know where to go. Yeah. Yeah, so he know exactly where to go, where they talk, so he knew where, like I said, he went back. He just put himself in there so much that he took Kendra out and she the character. That question, that
Yeah, and that's
answer
what-
was all
those
about
two are the
Kendra.
ones that
He
just
added,
yeah.
not about Kendra.
Because sometimes they want to say, it's so specific, and I say, if it's too specific, that is not the answer. It has to be connected to the whole idea.
You see how he put it in the circle of his main characters, lost in thought, could not stand. So, and then for each paragraph, you're gonna let me know what is happening there. And so that's what he did. Yeah, that's what he did. So he went back to this paragraph, he knew exactly where to go, because he had already annotated. She's thinking about her yellow boots. So they didn't. Yeah. And so like I said, half of them got it. Half of them got it, and half of them didn't. I'm curious to see if the half that didn't get it, if they chose that same answer there. See how many kids put themselves in that. Let's see, they kind of all over the place here.
Just push it in, just push it. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. No, not for the whole. Cause I put y'all on the timer for 10 minutes.
So Mitchell, what would you think that he would have shown you later?
What's the question now?
So what would you think that he would have shown, what would you like to see? Cause I'm interested in that too, because we're gonna start character traits.
Well, I think what I would have liked for him, after he done his,
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
what you call it, and took my test. After he done his process of elimination and left those two answer choices that was left, what I would like for him to have done was to find proof for each one of those.
For each one of them.
For each one of those last two. And then, because if he had done that,
You
he
would've
would have
figured it out.
noticed that there was no proof that she was angry and that she was upset. And there was proof to show that, she was glad somebody could use her.
Yeah, okay.
And even with that, Ms. Mitchell, I know that, especially for our babies, mixed feelings. When I
Yeah.
hone in on the
When you
word
said mixed, I was like, ooh.
Exactly.
Ooh.
So right then and there, when I'm having mixed feelings, I'm kinda like, I'm okay.
I'm okay, but I'm not
Yeah.
really,
Exactly.
yeah.
So
But
I still
I'm
have
giving them
to
to
be
you,
able
but
to
I am
say,
not
Yeah.
giving them to you willingly.
Ms. Bowen,
So, that's a hard one here.
Yeah, no, it is, once you said mixed feelings before, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
So you said, what did you say about the court?
Because it will give you a sense of not knowing which one is it.
But yeah, and so after he would go back and try to find proof of those last two.
so like we're taking CFA
And once
we're taking
he would have realized that there was no proof that she was upset, but he would have seen that she was glad that she could help someone else, because she said that, Asia, her friend, could still
Could use
use those.
them,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of not, I don't need them, she can use
She
them.
can use
Is the
them.
connection right
Yeah.
there.
Right, I mean, it's fair.
Those are some tricky ones.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
and with mixed feelings included in there.
Said
Yeah,
mixed
mixed
feelings.
feelings. Cause you know,
Her
I've got them trained to where they're looking for how the characters
So
are
you
feeling,
can
but then you come up on mixed feelings.
Like when you say, wait a minute.
So they ain't giving you nothing.
Yeah, they're like,
So you
what?
got- because they gotta infer.
Yeah. You've got to keep inferring.
Yeah.
You got to move just a little bit further in, so.
Y'all, do y'all still need time, or can we move on?
We can move on.
Alright.
How you work with them.
Alright, so now that you guys kinda did that, look at We're gonna take about a minute and 30 seconds. Look at your student's exemplar compared to yours. And think, does your student exemplar have something yours doesn't? You have things they don't have? And I'll go ahead and start the timer now. Oh, they have music to it.
What would I change? What would I add?
So you're just comparing.
Because
I can see where my student,
so you.
I didn't do it on my exemplar, but my student, he completely, when I say, you know, eliminate, he completely eliminated. So he drew a line through the whole thing. So I'm not gonna even look at that. That's what he did. But that's what I taught them to do. I just didn't do it on
Because we'll
mine.
have them every week, but then also our
Like,
district
Michelle, you
assessments
miss
for
bitch, you getting on
also,
our
because you do also for them. So math and reading for third grade, math, reading, writing for fourth grade, and math.
And I've got them, they're putting their question marks beside, like he put a question mark beside G and H. He wasn't sure, but he knew that one of those was the answer. So that meant he was gonna have to go back in the text and figure out which one of those was the right answer.
So where you at now? Comparing what?
The exemplars. What does each have that the other one doesn't? Alright, so that was time. And I should be, oops, not on this one. Alright, so a quick discussion. What did you notice as you guys compared student exemplar to the teacher exemplar? Mitch, you already started talking about it. What did you notice?
Oh, I had said that my student, for the process of elimination, when he eliminated the answer choices that could not be the correct answer, he didn't just mark through the letter, he marked through the entire statement that was said there, which would cause him, when he goes back, that I'm not focusing on these, cause these don't even exist anymore. These are the two answer choices that I'm looking at. And so that made it, help them to clarify what it is I'm trying to prove. Cause they know once you've eliminated your two, then you got two that you need to prove. Go back into the text and prove. And then also, they put a question mark beside, even if they think, oh, I believe this is the answer. Even if you think that's the answer, we're not gonna stop there. We read through every single answer choice. Put a question mark there because I believe that this could be my answer. And then as he went on, then he saw that the next answer choice, gave him cause to stop and think too. This could be my answer. And so he put another question mark there, which lets him know for sure, I've got to go and prove this. One of these, it's one of these. A lot of times when they go through and they put a question mark beside it, they can go ahead and eliminate the others, like I know this isn't it. And that leaves that one question mark, so then there's like, okay, that's my answer.
So I think my question to you is that what you do in your thinking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's what I model to them.
I mean, that's what I just,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I model.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can tell that that's what he was doing.
Alright, what about y'all? Anybody else?
I wanna piggyback on that, and then I'll go to it. One of the things that I literally figured out today is that specifically the kids that we can actually read the questions to, this is what I figured out. So I had kids who raise their hand, I go and read it, and then they work on it, and then they raise their hand again, and when I go back, they have already eliminated one or two. I asked I never thought about asking. I asked, do you want me to read the ones that you can select? And two of them said, no, they don't matter. So it will be a tricky thing for our 504, our special ed to say, hey, whenever you raise your hand, I want you to, I'm gonna read the whole thing. Whenever you have eliminated the two or one, even sometimes just one,
Sometimes it's just one they can eliminate.
raise your hand again, and I'm just going to read you the ones that you mark. And it is a way of refocusing away from that one that they heard that had nothing to do, and refocusing them on the one that they think that they can work with. And he worked with Arlette today, this is our common student.
Yeah.
And because I never thought about that. And I was like, that is so great, because most of our kids that are in that position is a lot of information. 4 is too much. So once they eliminate it, you just read 3 or 2, you're literally refocusing.
You're right, that's that modified star.
Yes.
Yeah, that's that modified.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that we don't have
anymore.
anymore.
Star, because star is star right
Yeah.
now
Right.
Yeah.
for our babies. But in the conceptual errors, or in the conceptual before we get to procedure, our babies need to be, I hate to use the word trained, acclimated to. I can't go to procedure if I don't even have the vocabulary and the
Yeah.
understanding
Yep.
to get
To
to
get
that.
there.
So
Yep.
in my classroom, that may take an 8-hour day from 9 to 4 before dinner, and it's technically what it is. I expect the very best, and maybe they don't score 70, but they use what they have. They're using those dictionaries.
Yep.
Just like today, the word was mounted. I can't find mounted. I found MOUNT on. Okay, so what's the base word? Mount. What's ED? It's a suffix. So does that mean pass? I mean, we break it down like that, and then you're able to go to the procedural
Yep.
aspect of what that question may be in the processing of those steps there.
That's good
And
stuff.
that's part of, just wanna say real quick.
So then, can I say this? So then, can we start, when you say, you didn't say train, what'd you say?
They're acclimated and.
Acclimated, I couldn't remember real quick, my brain going a little slow.
And they're doing it.
So can you
Oh,
kinda
yes.
start the practice
Oh, yes.
as well?
Oh, yes.
Well, I know you've been doing it, but now I heard it over here, now I know,
Yes.
okay.
Oh,
They'll
yes.
actually watch me, do that, you know, how we've been teaching them prefixes and suffixes. And I had them separate, like I had the word up there, and I had them separate.
Break
What
it
is
down.
the suffix? We boxed the suffix.
Mhm.
Then went to the root word.
Mhm.
Because, and then I made sure to tell them, now what word would I look up in the dictionary if I didn't know this word? And so that's just tying it in every single time you do that prefix suffix lesson. So vocabulary is very key. All right, we're gonna move forward. All right, so I did write down one of the conceptual errors was vocabulary,
Vocabulary.
one of the big ones. All right, so let's go ahead and punch what you guys noted. Are there any more conceptual errors that you guys noticed?
The connections between answers and the topic, the main topic of the informational
Okay,
text.
so making connections between answers
And the main topic of the text.
so it's the connect, would that be a procedure? No,
But that's conceptual.
No, it is, a connection, okay, connection between, you said the answers,
Yeah, the
and
answer
the-
choices, or the answer choice that they pick, and the topic, and the general topic.
That's good.
Because in a story, it will be the answer in the argument, not
but it
the
still
topic, it will
all
be the
has to
argument.
tie back to.
To the topic.
Yeah.
All right, what about procedural gaps? I know y'all saw those.
Oh,
We just said, let's start naming them.
Bill?
I'm gonna go
Back
with
into the
mechanical.
text to find their answers.
Yeah.
So, the procedure of text evidence, right?
Yep.
We're finding text evidence. Okay, anything else?
Simple things like not eliminating 2 answers. It's not eliminating.
So pretty much applying the strategy.
Planning strategies. Or I would say that in some of my cases, and I try not to give them mechanical strategies. That means stuff that they can just underline. So
Mhm.
whenever people say underline,
Yes.
what does that do?
You're
I
right.
can do that without thinking. So I find a couple of my students doing the circling that you saw, just for circling sake.
Just a circle. I saw
So,
that
so it's
today.
an I don't know how to
She's
explain
circling
that,
every
but
one for it.
it will be a mechanical way of, a mechanical use of strategies, no mind in
So
it.
applying the strategies without understanding.
Exactly. Yeah.
Means nothing to the kid.
Yeah, not-
All right, so just to punch what you guys talked about, the conceptual errors you guys noticed was vocabulary, the lack of vocabulary, and making a connection between the answer choices and the topic. Making sure they go back and say, okay, are these connected? Procedural gaps is actually finding text evidence, which it could go to, do you know what text evidence is? Why did I leave the C off? All right. And then applying the Gator strategy, being specific to that strategy, because like you said, they underline everything and circle stuff, that's not on the Gator strategy. Doesn't tell them to do that, so if they're doing that, they're just doing it. All right, so, anything else we need to add, or we can move on? All right. So now, based off of what we just, analyzed, based on the student's procedural and conceptual gaps, should you use modeling or guided recourse to reteach?
Let's
Which one is,
talk about why.
Okay, I'm like, we use both.
Well,
well, do we know the difference between the two?
I do.
Okay.
But in one of the things that for example, for the procedural, the underlining, what I did literally on Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember any day of this week, I literally put, without showing names, I put their test. And they were, what did you see? What do you see? And they don't know who it is. I actually have somebody criticizing her paper. No kidding. She was going all over on that test, and it was hers. Like, that person didn't do that. That person didn't do that. That person didn't do that. And I'm thinking to myself, she knows that she's criticizing her, but she was right. And it worked because, for example, my niece, who is one of those that likes to underline, she gets in the 50s, she got a 77 today. And I was looking specifically at what was she doing. And before she was circling, she was actually reading and then circling. There was an intention circling. So one of the things is to show them what other kids do. Don't just model yourself. You are the teacher, that works. But some of the lower kids, they want to see what the other kid is doing. Because if it's working for that person, I'm doing it. Because I am not you. You know it all. Meaning the teacher.
The teacher.
I want to know what is that person doing. So I show different types for the procedural that works, and it works today. We had a bunch of almost everybody.
Actually seeing their own, somebody at their level with those students doing that.
so
Okay.
modeling
Modeling is
Modeling.
the teacher
Procedures.
modeling.
Teacher modeling
and
by
student
including
voice.
the other student, because I brought the student and say, do it for us. So do we work on that?
And then guided recourse is what he just, did I do that right? This course, I don't know why I put that.
This-
But anyway, that is what he just stated, you showing the students' work. And how they start analyzing what should have been done, what wasn't done. They start recalling and saying what should have happened, just like he talked about. So we know the first thing we pretty much end up doing is what? She said modeling, right? Especially if it depends on how many kids missed it. So if majority of the kids missed it, I'm gonna have to go back and model. If it's maybe 5 kids, then my guided discourse.
Okay.
All right, so now, you guys pretty much, y'all did refine your no-show charts. I saw you guys adding. You made a really good, you added on the.
I added that same one.
Yes,
the
so
connection
tell
between-
everybody again what you added to your no-show chart.
So I had, chose the best answer with the text evidence and support. That was the last thing I had. So after I did that, and again, it's inferencing. So I added what is the connection between the answer choice and the topic, which is that, and then re-explain the answer choice in a different way to make sense. Because on this one, I wanted to know what is it that you were thinking that you were answering. Because sometimes vocabulary, they're gonna answer one that they don't understand, say, oh, this sounds good. What did you think you were reading? And so if they can explain it in that context, then that means that they actually, maybe they got it wrong, but at least they knew what they were answering. So I put those two because I think it is important, it adds, just by what Mitchell was saying, it adds the rethinking process of why did I answer that.
That was a good one to
I
add.
hope that makes
I just
sense.
wanted to point that out because that was a good one. All right, so what we're gonna do now is you guys are gonna actually script your reteach. So I'm gonna give y'all 5 minutes to script your reteach. Does everybody have something to write with?
Can I use this paper?
Yeah. Mhm. You can use the back of the paper that I gave you that had the data on it and the SE. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to script your reteach, and then we'll share out what that would sound like. Everybody know what we're doing? So if you're reteaching, look, Mitchell looking, you that kid.
Yes, I am.
Mitchell looking like, what? So what you gonna do is, for that specific teach, you already thinking, I need to reteach. My reteach is either gonna be my modeling or the guided discourse. What is my script when I go to reteach those kids? If I'm modeling, what am I gonna say?
Okay.
All right? I'm gonna go ahead and get it started right now. Make that more. Not too far off.
Probably do 10 minutes instead of that 15. I think you did 10, but you almost could do 5 because it's not a lot to think
Right.
to add to, to the next one. Because you really could have gotten, I don't think you should see that. True, and so we only 5 minutes. The gaps. Then that way you go right into identify the monument, guided discourse. And then script that, yeah. So, cause really, if you go ahead and do that at the back, you have an opportunity for them to name their gaps, align to them, and for like Doc could have came up and modeled with the group using the guidance recourse model with the group. Oh shoot.
Okay.
We just put it on him. Does that make sense?
I need to write that. There's no interaction. Because
Another thing,
I want to see what the question
even
is.
at the time yourself, we still use a little bit more time for them to come and tell us. Think about it. Turn and talk to your neighbor.
Remind me of that so I can make notes on
Okay.
here.
Turn and talk to your neighbor, one person. So go ahead and put it. Turn and talk to your neighbor.
On
When
which
you're
one?
talking about the, is he good or no?
I don't think so.
You would like that. Look. So, you're
I don't
saying,
know. Yeah. You gotta remember the number was on the DDI. It wasn't on this PowerPoint, but it's on the look forward.
so you want them to turn and talk. The celebration is one person report out. And then turn and talk with their guys. You need one person.
I heard. He said, what are the gaps? Here?
It's at the very beginning, the name is,
See the gap between, like, what are the gaps between turn and talk? Okay. I need to put the ones. It's in my look forward.
And the celebration, all you need to do is turn. And then you say, okay, turn and talk with your neighbor. You could do that. Turn and talk with your
That's what I
neighbor.
did last time.
And that's why it went just like that.
This will make it a little shaky. Which I don't think we got that far last year. We didn't get this far last year.
Not in the scripting at all.
All right, y'all got about a little over a minute left.
You're forgetting they're not coming back. Okay.
Okay. Target, good job. Belle could probably tell you what the lab should be, just fine.
What's his plan in independent practice? That takes a little longer.
Well, she probably could tell you off the cusp of her head
Let's think about it.
what it would look like. Lab 1 is a procedure, lab 2, that's what she possibly.
All right, now we're about 10 seconds. Whew. Really, Doc?
I'm ready.
Right. He's that kid in the class.
You got 3 minutes.
Snap.
If we wait, that means that we wait. If somebody's answering, that means that we leave.
All right, so now, Bill, because I like your scripts. Go ahead, share with us your script for your reteach.
What I just wrote?
Yep.
Okay. Imagine being at the store and you see a child and an adult battling about a toy. Can you describe the relationship? Can you infer the basis of their disagreement without listening to their conversation? And then just go into, today we're gonna learn about, how to analyze character relationships and conflicts among characters and how they're related to people in real life.
Okay.
So now, Belle, I'm gonna challenge you based on something we did yesterday. So based on the procedure and the conceptual knowledge of what we talked about, what would lap 1 focus on? Just on that reteach of what you're talking about. What would you want them to do if you type that up? What's the first thing you want them to do?
Lab 1 would be the conceptual, right?
Procedural.
The procedural, I'm sorry, the procedural. So the first thing I would want them to do is to notice the characters.
Okay.
So how we circle the characters, okay, Ben and Abby, what is their relationship? How can you infer that? On the second lap.
Now, but really, are you at the procedure or you're actually that's kind of like that what?
Conceptual,
So-
ask them to infer would be the conceptual.
So what would be the, like the Gator strategy? What would be a Gator strategy first that you would want them to do?
Circle the character. The other one that we did was, underline, ooh. Let me read this one.
No, just, I mean, anybody want to chime in? No, it's not something that's,
Circle the sentence that,
Okay.
that identified the relationship,
okay.
right? That's procedural, right?
Well, think about what you want them to do when they first, what you were telling them, like today, when I walked in. You didn't see something. You said something to them right away as the first thing they were supposed to do.
Analyze use their strategy.
Yeah.
And analyze. the
Exactly.
problem.
So you would have them analyze and do that. So now to the conceptual part, what would you have them do?
So that would be
So
lap,
this
now
would
you're on
start
lap 2.
Lap 1,
Lap
now
two.
lap 2.
Mm-hmm.
I would have them to infer what the relationship is, because most of the time it's in the passage, but it's not clearly stated.
So do
it
they
would have to be
analyze it
in-
first, or what did you tell them to do first, before they get to the analyze part? They had to,
Identify.
yep,
The relationship.
they identify who is
the
even talking about,
relationship.
right, so that would be like the second thing, to do, identify
And
the
then
characters of,
analyze.
and then,
And then, no, text evidence would be procedural. Then they would be able to, this is something that I want them to be able to do when Doc stated, be able to make a connection, be able to take that situation of where like, where I mentioned like with the girl and her mother. You watching them from afar, so you really don't know the conversation. But if you can read that text without them telling you what the relationship is, look for words or vocabulary or interactions and tell whether it's positive, whether it's negative, what's the cause of it, can you predict what's gonna happen next, can you be able to draw conclusions, but they have to be able to connect to it, and maybe they can take that connection and relate it to real life where it makes sense. Cause when they get to a part where they struggle with the vocabulary, or when we were talking about imagery, if they can take that image and put it in their head, like, oh, okay, I've seen this before, this has happened to me. So I guess, getting back to that foundation of background knowledge, they would have to have enough, also, while you're teaching it, have the background knowledge as a part of your teaching as well. You know, what does this remind you of, and, you know.
It sounds like you want them to not identify the characters, but then you wanna actually see something written to where they have written out what the interaction was between both characters. So that actually would be your lab 3. You wanna see them actually analyze based off of the text. Yes.
The action can move, so you have the identification, then you have the identification and analysis of the action, so the relationship, and then you can actually move to the next step to why did they do that, and that will be the character trait. And that's what and for parents.
Almost like a cause and effect.
Yes.
Why did this happen?
And that's what, whenever the parents ask me, how do I help my kid in reading? Ask them why. Why did that character did that? Don't ask them what did they do. That's a lower level. I can read it. It's right there. Why did he or she did that? And that will be the next level, because it will allow you to analyze the character.
Why with evidence?
Exactly.
Also.
So here's the difference. So
job.
we're thinking about the Gomez and Gomez model, right? We know in the activity 1, it's supposed to be on the lower level. So like what he just kind of stated, you come to the next day,
Yeah.
activity 2, now it has to be on a higher level. So what he just mentioned, that's on a higher level. That's on a higher level. So that's,
You talking about the why?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Cause now you're not, okay, I can identify, that's on a lower level.
yeah.
Identify, and you begin to, discuss what happened. Then, cause we're on the same team, you guys do, like you just said, we spent a whole week on it. So if you spend a whole week on this, you come to activity 2, now you gotta dive deeper. And that's where the why, why did so-and-so do this? And they're having to really dig deep and analyze and go back in the text and figure out this caused this to happen, and then you're going deeper into it.
Okay.
All right, so I think we ran out of time, but I want to thank you all for coming and having the good
This
discussion.
is good.
We added something very important, which was the connection between the answer choice and the topic is the students making connections. And the main thing is this right here. So these 2 were the biggest takeaways for me. Thank y'all for coming.
All right, good job, good job.